We are continuing on Masechet Chagigah and we are holding on Daf Yutet Amud Aleph. The Limud of Amud Yomi for today is sponsored for Hatzlacha of Yeshua ben Dina Diana and Yael bat Rivka, and we are continuing on a topic that we started, very interesting topic in the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda when it comes to good achit in the halachot of mikvaot. In other words, we spoke about the fact that a person that goes to mikveh and he wants to use taharot and kochim afterwards, he has to have a specific mindset. You can't just necessarily dunk in the mikveh and come out and say, well, I'm tahor, and one counts for all. But rather, if you want to, let's say, ingest kochim, you have to have mindset of kochim when you go to the mikveh. This is a chumrah darabanan, that even though that midoraita you go to mikveh, midarabanan it's a chumrah of taharot, that when you go to mikveh you have to have that very specific mindset for that very specific thing that you're going to be using. In other words, if you're going to be eating truma, you have to say, when you go to mikveh, I have in mind that I'm going to be eating truma, kochim. Then we had a chidush of a person that goes down to mikveh, comes back up, and then he wants to change his mind, or he wants to state which one of the taharot he wants to ingest or deal with. So he goes to the mikveh, forgets to have kavanah, comes back up, and says, oh gee, I forgot. I want this tevilah that I just did 2 seconds ago to be considered a tevilah for teruma. The Gemara says, fine, no problem, you could do that. Tosafot said, you have to still be wet, mamash, when he came up. Then we had apparently contradicting braita that says, when you went inside and you came back up, if you didn't have kavanah, you can no longer change it. Unless you have 1 foot in the water. If you have 1 foot in the water, you could change your status. You could say, well, I don't want for chulin, I want for teruma. I don't want for teruma, I want for a higher level. You could up the level, but you have to still have 1 foot in the water. So do you have to have 1 foot in the water or not? And Gemara said, no, it's not a stira. Both of them are correct. If you had no kavanah whatsoever before, you just went to mikveh, then you could decide immediately when you come back up, even if your foot is no longer in the mikveh, you could say, well, this tevilah that I just did should be for kodesh. But if you had kavanah, but you want to change it now, you said, I want teruma when you were in the water. You came up, you said, oh, wait a second, tonight you're invited to a kodesh party, right? I need for kodesh also. Then you can't change it if you're out of the water unless you have still an attachment to the mikveh, 1 foot in the mikveh. Then the Gemara asked, who is this Tana that says that 1 foot in the mikveh you could change for a chumrah? And the Gemara suggests that is Rabbi Yehuda. Now we are amidst bringing a proof that this is actually Rabbi Yehuda. So we brought a proof for it that if a person, two people go to mikveh, one after another, in a mikveh that was exactly, precisely mem seah, 40 seah. Then, the first one that goes in and comes back up, of course, he used a proper mikveh. He's good. But the second guy is in trouble because, of course, there's a certain amount of water that has been stuck in the hair and on the body of the first guy. And therefore, now the mikveh is chaser. The mikveh is not 40 seah. Rabbi Yehuda said, that's Rabbanan. Rabbanan said the second guy is not good. Rabbi Yehuda said, no, the second person also could be good, so long as the foot of the first one still is in the water. Because we call this a good achit. We can assume that all the water that's on the first person is attached with the mikveh on the bottom, because there's 1 foot in, so therefore all the water is attached as if all this water that's on him is back down in the mikveh, and the mikveh is 40 seah. That's what Yehuda says. The Gemara says, well, of course, that's only midarabanan. If a person is tameh midoraita, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that that's not going to be a good mikveh. We don't say good achit, this drop the water down in the mikveh. We don't say that in a deoraita level. We say it only for a chumrah. Here, it's just a chumrah, right? To change this. So the Gemara's proof was, you see, Rabbi Yehuda is the one that holds that we use the concept of good achit, drop down the water, for a chumrah at the very least. So that was the proof we ended off with yesterday. The last 2 minutes of it we didn't read. We're going to read it right now, and then we'll see the challenge of the Gemara. So it says, the Gemara, this is 14 lines up. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, line starts with, Im hayu raglav shel rishon nog'ot b'mayim, if the feet of the first guy are still touching the water, are still in the water, af hasheni tahor. Even the second person who dunked in the mikveh that doesn't have now 40 se'ah, unless you count the water on the first person's body, he's going to be tahor also. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Bar Avuha. The Gemara says that machloket of Rabbanan, who say you can't do that, and Rabbi Yehuda that says you can, but ma'alot de Rabbanan is only in a machloket in when you have ma'alot de Rabbanan. That really you're not dealing with the tum'ah deoraita, you're just dealing with the levels of ta'ara, it's all midrabanan. So Rabbi Yehuda says, when you're dealing with the tevilah de'Rabbanan, it's good enough. When the person has good achit, he's still attached to mikveh, you could be mekel, you could be lenient. But if you have a tum'ah deoraita, and you want to make this person tahor from scratch, divrei hakol hasheni tameh. According to everyone, including Rabbi Yehuda, the second guy is tameh. It doesn't work. V'hainu de Rabbi Pedat, and that is the proof that the Gemara wanted to bring. Remember, yesterday we said Rabbi Pedat is the one that said Rabbi Yehuda holds you could change your mindset from one level of tevilah to a higher level of tevilah, given that your foot is still in the water. And the Gemara asked, who is that? And we suggested it's Rabbi Yehuda. Now this is a full circle that comes to prove Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says if the second guy going to mikveh while the first person's foot is still in the water, that mikveh is still considered 40 sa'ah, 40 sa'ah for a tevilah d'Rabbanan. Right? So that's our proof that Rabbi Yehuda holds it. Now the Gemara asks a very good question. The Gemara says, well, how about the reverse? In other words, you told me Rabbi Yehuda holds of good achit, that once the water on the body of this person is connected with the mikveh, we assume all the water is back in the mikveh. How about assuming that because the water is attached to the mikveh, that the person's body also could act as a mikveh? Right? What would be the example? What we said yesterday, that you have a little needle that you want to do tevilat kelim on, and you want to put it inside the water. You know, imagine a thick hair and a lot of hair, it's full of water, just came out. You want to put it there, take it out. Is that considered good asik also? We have two concepts, good achit and good asik. You connect it downwards and you connect it upwards. So we said Rabbi Yehuda holds you connect it downwards. That we already said. For ma'alot d'Rabbanan. How about good asik? Does he also hold up good asik or not? We will see that this is going to be a machloket tanaim actually. And let's learn it and see if Rabbi Yehuda agrees. Says the Gemara. Before we go to the next step of the Gemara has another girsa over here as well. The Gemara says, Ika de Amri, there are those who say, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Avuha, Machloket Bitumal Ta'ara, Amal B'Ma'alot Rabbanan Divrei Hakol, Af Hasheni Tahor. There are those who say the Machloket of Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda is only in Ma'alot Rabbanan. Right? This is the first one. The first one that we said is the Machloket Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan is by Ma'alot Rabbanan. That Rabbi Yehuda says by a Rabbanan you could use good achit, and Chachamim say even by Ma'alot Derabanan, you cannot use good achit. But by a deoraita, if you are trying to make somebody tahor from scratch, even Rabbi Yehuda would tell you you cannot use good achit. You can't use a lom de shemikveh for creating tahara from scratch with the oraita level. That's one thing that we just said. There are those who say, no, the machloket is one step different. That the machloket is by the oraita, but by the Rabbanan, everyone agrees you could do it. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda would tell you even on a deoraita, even if you want to make somebody tahor from scratch with the oraita level, you could use the concept of good achit. That the person, when the first person is in the mikveh, the second guy's mikveh could be even a mikveh that you need deoraita. The guy is completely tameh, and you want to make him tahor, even with deoraita it could be mekeh. But by the Rabbanan, even Rabbanan themselves agree. By a level, higher level of the Rabbanan, just the ma'alot, higher level of kedusha, not midoraita, by that everyone is maker. That's so long as the feet of the first guy is in the water, you say good achid. It's as if you connect the water downwards, and the person that goes to the mikveh, the second guy, will be tahor, kabaldik, right? So that would be the second way, the second ikadami. Now the Gemara says, well, wait a second. That would be, of course, not like Rav Pedat, right? Because Rav Pedat said that only by ma'alot the Rabbanan, only by rabbinic levels, Rabbi Yehuda was meker. Now, if this ikadami says, no, Rabbi Yehuda would be meker completely. Even from scratch, if you want to become tahor from Tumah Doraita, still would be good to go. Right? So says the Gemara, wait a second, I have this good question. They asked Rabbi Yochanan, according to Rabbi Yehuda that he just told me, especially according to the second way, that Rabbi Yehuda holds of this mamash midoraita, that Rabbi Yehuda would say, well, even midoraita, if you have the guy attached to the water, the mikveh is a completely good mikveh. And you could even do tevilat kelim in it. You know, tevilat kelim, Maran Paskins, is midoraita. It's important to note this because many people use the quasi-mikvehs for tevilat kelim. They think, tevilat kelim, they think, nida is a big deal, right? But tevilat kelim, Maran Paskins in Yorada, Siman Kuf Chaf, in two places there, in Seif Tet and in Seif Yud Bet, you see clearly that Maran holds his deoraita. Now there's a lot to talk about with the Bet Yosef there because Maran seems to clearly understand that the Shita of Rambam was as such. He understood that Rambam holds Tevilat Kelim is Doraita. Now what Rambam really holds is debatable, not for the scope of this talk at all, but nevertheless Maran Haskins Ishcharuk that Tevilat Kelim is Doraita. We're talking about metal vessels, right? Glass is Midorabanan. So therefore you need a mikveh far better than a mikveh that me and you would use. Me and you could jump into a pool. For men, a swimming pool is fine for a mikveh. So not every mikveh for men is going to be kasher necessarily for a mikveh for kelim. So you have to be very careful with that. Now, the Gemara is discussing, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that you have this concept of good achit, that you attach downwards the water. How about attaching it upwards? Once you say that it's connected, all connected, so maybe we could say good achit and also good asik, and then afkamina would be take a little vessel, a little sinor, a little small needle, and put it in the hair of somebody that just came out. This is the first guy that is on the way coming up, and it's still attached to mikveh, and that should be good. So what's the question? The question is, do we only say good achid according to Rabbi Yehuda? Or do we also say good asik? So says the Gemara, good achid itle Rabbi Yehuda, good asik letle. Do we say that he only holds of good achid, but not good asik? Or Dilma good asik nami itle. Or maybe he also connects them halachically upward, and the goof of the person that's attached to the mikveh would be a mikveh. He is a chefza of a mikveh, this person. So says the Gemara, Amar le Tarituha. He said, I have a proof from a Mishnah. I have a proof over here from a bright. Really, this is a bright. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan answers, says, Shalosh gumim yud benachal ha'elyona ha'tachtona v'ha'emtzai. If you have a river, a little water coming down from Megeh Shanim, and there are 3 indentations, there are 3 holes in the path of this Nachal. There's the top one, there's the middle one, and then there's the bottom one. The water goes down, and they have top, middle, and bottom one. Now, the question is like this. The top one and the bottom one, they are very small. Each one of them only fit esrim se'ah, 20 se'ah, not 40. 20 se'ah. The middle one is a real mikveh. The real one is 40 se'ah. So the question is, the middle one, of course, you could dunk in. It's a full mikveh. And Shalom al Israel. How about using the top one or the bottom one for a mikveh? Can you use the top one? Can you use the bottom one? Without seeing the Gemara, what would we think, based on what we just learned? No. We would say, well, wait, don't jump in. We would say, well, the top one, if you want it to be kasher, you have to use the concept of good asik. Because you want the 40 se'ah in the middle one to be as if they're on top, and then you have a connection to the top. Because you're using the top one for the mikveh. And if you want to use the bottom one, then you need good achit. So it's a perfect example, perfect proof that Rabbi Yochanan brings for this discussion. He says, the Gemara, the middle one is a good mikveh. There is water stream going down, connecting all 3 of these holes. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, well, our question is Rabbi Yehuda, Gevaldik. Rabbi Yehuda says, Meir Haya Omer, Meir, my good friend, my Bar Plukta, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir were friends and they were Bar Pluktas, right? So he says, Meir Omer, Matbil Be'elyona, that even the top one, the first one, you could do tefillah in. You could use the first one as a mikveh, says Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Meir, right? So says Rabbi Yochanan, essentially Rabbi Yochanan is answering them that yes, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you could even say good asik, not just good achid. Why? Because you see, Rabbi Yehuda quotes his friend here, Rabbi Meir, and he doesn't disagree with him. In lieu of any other source, and Rabbi Yochanan says, I don't know of any other source that Rabbi Yehuda would indicate Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir got up in a drasha one Shabbat morning and said, well, my friend Rabbi Meir holds that you could do tefillah in the top one even, which is the biggest chiddush. That not only we say good achit, but we also say good asik, gevaldik. He didn't say he disagrees with him. So if I would want to guess, I would say if he said it and he didn't say he disagrees with him, it means that he agrees with him. So now I have a proof for you that Rabbi Yehuda holds also good asik. The Gemara says, correct, but you missed a braita. There is another braita that Rabbi Yehuda, after his Shabbat drasha, he said, but I disagree with him. Right? Now, a little preface for this. It's important for everyone that's going through Shas. Every Tanakh is expected to know all the Mishnayot. There's no such a thing as a Tanakh not knowing one of the Mishnayot. Right? It's Torah Bidvar Mishnayot. But they're not expected necessarily to know all the brightness. Mishnayot were, of course, authored by, we assume that it was authored by Rabbi Yehuda. See, the reason I'm saying we assume is it's not 100% clear, but that's what we assume. So Rambam writes And braitas, there are many braitas out there. Now, there are braitas that are, certified braitas by the Bet Midrash of Rav Oshaya and Rav Chia. Those are, ois gehalten, certified braitas. And then there are braitas. There are many, many braitas. So not every Tana knew every braita. Certainly, not every Amorah. Scratch what I said before. It's Amoraim. Amoraim are expected to know all the Mishnayot, but they're not expected to know all the braitas. So every Amorah has to know all the Mishnayot. But if they don't know all the braitas, it's fine. So sometimes you find the Gemara says, well, it's a braita against you. And oftentimes, if there's no argument, it says, okay, fine, if there's a braita, there's a braita. I didn't know the braita. Here is one such case. Rabbi Yochanan brought a powerful raya, a powerful proof from this Tanaic source that Rabbi Yehuda mentioned this concept of good asik from Rabbi Meir, of course, but it seems like he agrees with him. So the Gemara, the students, happen to know a braita that clearly, black on white, says that Rabbi Yehuda did not hold of that. And that's going to be where it stops. So says the Gemara, V'hatanya, we learned in the braita exactly not like that. Rabbi Yehuda said, Meir haya omer matbil ve'elyona. Yes, Rabbi Meir, my good friend, says that you could use the first ditch of water over here, the first hole, which has 20 cells of water inside. You could go and use it as a mikveh, because we say good asik. Ve'ani omer, and says Rabbi Yehuda, and I disagree. Ve'ani omer, be'tachtona ve'lo be'elyona. You could use the bottom one, the middle one everyone agrees, of course, the mikveh. It says, I say that the bottom one you could use, even though that's only 20 cells, because we say good achit. That we knew already that Rabbi Yehuda holds good achit. But lo be'elyona, the top one you cannot use, because while we do say good achit, says Rabbi Yehuda, we do not say good asik, and that's the halacha according to Rabbi Yehuda. So your question was whether or not Rabbi Yehuda would allow you to put a needle in the hair of this guy and use it as a tevilah because his foot is in the water. The answer is Rabbi Yehuda would say no, he cannot do that, and says Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Lehu, he told them, Itanya Tanya. If there's a braita, Gavaldik, there's a braita, and I retract my proof because it's a clear thing that Rabbi Yehuda actually disagreed with Rabbi Meir. So ends up being we're learning a lot of fundamentals about the halachot of Tumah v'Tahara, and this is one of them. That good asik and good achid, there are halachic concepts that perhaps we have been introduced to in the halachot of eruvin, in the halachot of sukkah for mechitzot, but not for Tumah v'Tahara. And here is the concept that we learned from the Mishnayot in Mikvalot, that you actually have good achit, and maybe perhaps, according to Rabbi Meir at least, which is not the halacha, even good asik. So now
Is there a logic behind why only one of them works? Or it's just
well, it's much bigger chiddush to say that is a good asik than good achid. Good achid means you have the body of water, the majority over there, and this came from it and is still attached to it. In other words, this water was right there before. In both cases, also of even in the case of the braita that we just brought for the 3 ditches, this water was there. It's all attached, and it's coming down. And in the case of the mikveh, the water on the person was in this source of water, so it's coming from a kosher mikveh, and it's still attached to it. It's not completely detached. So therefore, it's easier to say good achit than imagine that this water that was never up there now is going to be good asik. Says the Gemara.
But if something's connected, it's connected. What difference does it make which direction it's connected?
The water.
If you're saying that something is connected, the connection goes both ways.
Not necessarily. No, you have sometimes something that's rov, something that's not rov, something that's considered main one. So it's not even in the hot tefillah you have this. You have, imagine if you have the halachot for If you have two rooms open to each other, and you have the majority of minyan in one of them, and the completing people are going to be in the other room, which room follows which room is not, we don't necessarily say, well, because they're attached, as long as you have a subtotal of 10, it doesn't matter where each one is. It's not like that. And this is not even a good example, just l'saber ta'ozen, to make it a little bit more tangible. But the halachot of Tumah Tara, again, much of these are halachah Moshe Sinai even. That does not follow a specific logic, but here in this case, certainly the main body of water is there, so it's easier to say that this is batel to this than saying that this follows that. So, says the Gemara now, a very interesting back and forth about the levels of Kedusha. And this is something that if you did a little review on the Gemara, on the Mishnah, you may have actually had the question yourself. How many levels of Tahara did we count in the Mishnah? 5, that's correct. But that's only for those who did review in the beginning of the Mishnah, and they forgot to keep counting at the end of the Mishnah. In the beginning of the Mishnah we said, we have Chulin, we have Maser, we have Truma, we have Kodesh, and we have Mechatat, right? 5. But then the problem is, in Yudchet Amud Bet, when we did the Mishnah, in the last segment of the Mishnah, we mentioned how each one of these is tameh for the higher level. You remember? The begadim, the clothing of a person that's on a lower level of mindfulness, so to speak, is tameh, is midras for the higher level. And how did we count them? We mentioned Bigdei Amaretz midras leperushim. Bigdei Amaretz is midras for perushim, which is level of chulin. Perushin are people who eat their chulin with tahara. And after that, instead of going to maaser, we skip over maaser, and we go to what? Teruma. Take a look. Bigdei Amaretz midras leperushim. Bigdei perushim midras leteruma. The second level completely skips over maaser and jumps into teruma. So it really counts 4 levels, not 5. Now, if you want to really press your minds to remember a machloket tanaim of whether or not maaser is counted as one of the levels, which one would you come up with? If you remember, we had a machloket tanaim in Mishnah in Perek Yud Aleph of Para. You remember how we had 3 different Mishnayot, in Mishnah in Chagigah, the Mishnah in Bikurim, and then the Mishnah in Para was the third one, right? The Mishnah in Chagigah was the one that said both for Chulin and for Maaser you need the Tilat Yadayim. The Mishnah in Bikurim was the one that said for both of them you don't need the Tilat Yadayim. And the third one was that for Chulin and Maaser is Machloket, Rabbanan and Rabbi Meir. Rabbanan being more stringent, and Rabbi Meir being more lenient when it came to Maaser. Rabbanan required the Tilat Yadayim for Maaser, and Rabbi Meir did not differentiate between Maaser and Chulin. That's the Mishnah that we had on Daf Yud Chet Amud Bet, right? So according to Rabbi Meir, how many levels do you have? 4 levels. According to Rabbanan, how many do you have? You have 5. Right? So that's the simple, this is no genius here. We have learned this already in the Mishnayot in Gemara. We brought the Mishnah in Para Perek Yud Aleph in Yudchet Amud Bet. Now the Gemara goes back and just revisits this Mishnah and says, wait a second, we missed a very important point. Our Mishnah starts with what seems to be Rabbanan and then concludes with what seems to be Rabbi Meir. How in the world does that make sense? Make your mind. Does Maaser have its own category, or does Maaser not have its own category? Because you count 5 in the beginning, and then you include only 4 of them in the conclusion of the Mishnah, when you give the examples of Bigdei Amaretz, Midras Leperushin, B'chulei. So it says, the Gemara, I basically gave you the explanation outside, which is much easier to understand than going and getting lost in the words of the Gemara, but the next 5 lines are going to say exactly that. So let's read it through. Says the Gemara, Mani Matnikin, who in the world is our Tana of our Mishnah in Chagigah Daf Yudchet Amud Bet? Says the Gemara, of course it's Rabbanan. Rabbanani, the Shani Lehu Ben Chulin leMaaser. It's Rabbanan that differentiate between Chulin and Maaser, and they count 5 levels of Tahara. Gemara says, no, it can't be. Ema Sefa. Take a look at the Sefa. The end of the Mishnah says, Bigdei Ha'Maares Midras LePerushim. Starts with Chulin, which means Bigdei Ha'Maares is Midras LePerushim, and skips over Maaser and jumps into Teruma, Bigdei Perushim Midras Noch Teruma. And you don't mention anything about the level of Maaser holding its own level. It says the Gemara, Atan Rabbi Meir. That's not Rabbanan, that is Rabbi Meir. Because you don't have Maaser. According to Rabbi Meir, Chulin and Maaser is Hainuach, is one and the same. The Amar Chulin and Maaser, Ke'adadininu, that he holds Chulin and Maaser are the same. Resha Rabbanan, Besefa Rabbi Meir. Says the Gemara, can you have such a reality that one Mishnah in Masechet Chagigah starts with one Tana and then it seamlessly follows to an arguing Tana's Shita? One of them only works according to Rabbanan, the other one is Rabbi Meir. Can you have such a thing? And it says, because Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. But sometimes you have Machloket, and the Gemara, the Mishnah rather mentions, this is the Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, this is Chachamim Omrim. But this is a seamless Mishnah. It's just giving you bullet points of information, and anybody that reads the Mishnah would say, well, it's the same Tanah. So says the Gemara, can it be that it's not the same Tanah, and really it's Machloket Tanaim mentioned in the Mishnah seamlessly as if it's all the same? And says the Gemara, yeah, you could have that. In Resha Rabbanan v'Sefer Rabbi Meir, it could be such a reality that you have Resha Rabbanan and Sefer Rabbi Meir. Rav Acha bar Ada Maknila v'Sefer Chamesh Malot. Rav Acha bar Ada, he actually has a different girsa, slightly different girsa in our Mishnah, which makes it seamlessly all homogeneous, basically based on Rabbanan's Shita, which means he has 5 ma'alot of ta'ara in the Sefer as well. How does he have it? The Sefer 5 ma'alot, umokila kula kirabanan, and everything is according to Rabbanan. In other words, he has a level of Maaser in the middle also, that Bigdei Ha'Maaretz is Midras for Ochle Maaser, and Bigdei Ochle Maaser is Midras, it is Midras for Chulin, and Bigdei Ochle Chulin is Midras LeMaaser, and so on and so forth. So the entire Mishnah, according to Rav Acha bar Ada, is according to Rabbanan, and it's not a machloket Rabbi Meir and Rabbanan, and B'ezrat Hashem, we will continue this in the days to come.